Thank you very much, Las Cancorlan. Firstly, I want to thank the Cancorlan's office for the sensitivity in choosing this topical issue, because the progression of St Mary's Special School in Navan means a great deal to so many parents and students across County Meath. I understand that the Minister for Education is delayed in the Shannon, but I acknowledge that Minister Dáil is well appraised in terms of this issue, and I hope that he would address the issue of the logjam in progressing this school, which was promised over 7 years ago, and I hope that he will have information in respect of the commencement of the construction process, because, Minister, parents have been left frustrated with the endless tales of the architects working on the tendering process, and as they've listened to information about tendering and other aspects, they have seen 2 brand new schools built on the same educational campus where St Mary's has had a site reserved, and these 2 schools are much needed primary schools, St Stephen's and secondary school Coláiste na Mí, for the huge residential area of Johnstown and Navan, but all 3 were announced for this campus, and the only one that hasn't been delivered is St Mary's Special School. And going back to Christmas 2013, I sat in the hall of that new primary school and looked at the plans for the proposed St Mary's Special School and listened to affirmations that construction would be underway soon. That was Christmas 2013. And what has frustrated the parents greatly, Minister, is the fact that there has been such a delay while the other 2 schools progressed and were completed on time on the campus, while no work completed on St Mary's, and B, that the parents have been left in the dark about where their school actually stands and whether there was going to be any progress on building it. Now, I know, Minister, that the department gets many requests in terms of the advancement of schools, but, Minister, I can tell you that there is none going to be more deserving than St Mary's Special School in Navan. It is superbly led by Principal Maria Corridor and Chairman of the Board of Management Bob O'Callaghan, as well as a team of dedicated staff who accommodate individual learning styles so that all students may experience success. The school has been in existence for over 42 years and caters for nearly 90 students from all across Meath, Cavan, Louth and Dublin. And, Minister, they cater from every geographical point in the county. So I met parents from Old Cassells this week in the north of the county, beside the Cavan border, and they have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning so they can travel to this school. And 60 kilometres away in Ballinabrackey, at the far end of the county, where you can puck a ball into Offaly, there are children doing the same thing. These children with some acute special needs are spending maybe an hour and a half on a bus to get to school. Now, they're grateful that there is a school to go to in the first instance, but what they would like is the new school that has been promised to them now on several occasions. A school that is not just surviving in an old, adapted, antiquated building where some students are having to attend in a different HSE-owned building a mile down the road because there isn't enough room on the site where they are. Last summer, Minister Bruton, who was then the Minister for Education, visited the school along with 3 fellow government ministers from Meath. Now, the Meath Chronicle weren't buying the photo shoot moment. They captured the mood perfectly when they ran a front page the following week with the headline that screamed, "Build our school now, Minister." And as they said on their front page, despite the visit of 4 government ministers last week, staff and parents of 90 pupils of St Mary's Special School in Navan look set to wait another 18 months before work starts on their new building promised 7 years ago. Now, the parents I met from the school this week, Minister, want to know, why has there been such a delay? What is the logjam? And when will a shovel actually go into the ground for construction to start? One mum who I met this week, Tracy Hollisgrove, she said she could be named here today, wanted to know, Minister, when was her little girl Fanula going to get the same facilities, the same opportunities afforded to the rest of the children currently on the new educational campus. Her daughter leaves Oldcastle at 7:30 for school in Navan at 9 because it is the only facility available, and has done this commute since she's 5. She's 12 now. But if Tracy knew that when Fanula got to school that she had a dedicated, purpose-built, soft playroom to enjoy, then she'd have a weight lifted from her shoulders. There are so many parents that have seen their children progress through these outdated facilities over the past 4 decades, and they are now fighting for the current crop of students and staff at the school, so that perhaps they might get to enjoy the planned new school and have the dignity they deserve in receiving their education. And I would hope, Minister, that you could have some positive news on when this school is going to commence.
Thank you, Deputy. And can I just again apologise for Minister McHugh's in the Shannon there dealing with the Brexit emergency legislation. We can see when the screen is speaking, so he can't be here and I'm taking in his place. I thank the Deputy for raising this matter, as it provides me with an opportunity to outline to the Dáil the current position in relation to the major building project for St Mary's Special School, Navan. This project is included on the 6-year construction programme 2016 to 2021, announced on the 17th of November 2015 to go to tender and construction. St Mary's Special School will be part of a shared campus with Coláiste na Mí. The building project will deliver a Phase 2 extension for Coláiste na Mí and a new school building for St Mary's Special School. The new building for St Mary's will provide an area of 3,746 square metres, with 11 classrooms and associated ancillary accommodation to cater for pupils with a range of learning disabilities. In December 2018, the project completed Stage 2A, developed design stage, and has been authorised to proceed to Stage 2B. Detailed design, which includes the applications for planning permission, fire cert and disability access cert, and the preparation of tender documents. Planning permission for this particular project was sought earlier than usual in the architectural planning process during Stage 2A as a means to identify any potential issues which might arise. All statutory approvals for St Mary's are now secured, and the project design team is currently working on the completion of the Stage 2B submission and bringing the project to tender-ready stage, which will include the pre-qualification of contractors for the main contract and reserved specialist contracts, and compiling a shortlist of contractors. Upon receipt and review of the Stage 2B submission, the project will then be authorised to commence the pre-qualification of contractors. Pre-qualification normally takes between 8 and 12 weeks to complete. When pre-qualification is complete, the project will then be progressed to tender stage. A tender stage normally takes between 7 and 8 months to complete. Thank you, Cormac.
Thanks, Lascan Corlin. I thank Minister Daly, but I would have hoped that we would have had even more firmer, detailed timeframes for when this was going to start, because in terms of these indicative of how long a tender process takes, the parents have been listening to this for the last number of years. And you say, Minister, in the reply that it's part of the 2016 to 2021 programme, but it was announced by the last government 7 years ago. And this is what maybe frustrates parents, and that there was no harm, or there was no qualified remarks when it was being announced 7 years ago that this was coming. The other two schools on the campus flew through the planning process, flew through the approval stages in Tullamore, and are actually on site and built. And the only school from the schools announced 7 years ago that hasn't progressed has been St Mary's Special School. And they are frustrated in terms of why has there been such a logjam in the respect of that. And I would ask that you would go back to Minister McHugh and ask the department what has been the delay in allowing for that, because of all the students that are going to occupy that campus, the students in St Mary's Special School are the ones who need the most up-to-date facilities. Over the past 42 years, they have been in two separate temporary facilities, antiquated facilities, and the hope that was afforded them 7 years ago when it was announced that a new school campus was coming was amazing. And I have visited this building on several occasions. And I suppose it's the frustration now that another batch of students are going to go through it and not see the realisation of that dream. And the parents that have had children in that school are now out advocating and fighting for the parents that have currently got children in St Mary's Special School, because these kids do deserve the best. And I know in that your brief that you would fully appreciate that and back those sentiments. So, Minister, what I would ask you to do, I appreciate that you've outlined a tender process. The parents have heard that there before. We want to know, is there going to be a shovel-ready site in January of next year, or is it going to be delayed even further? And that's what I would ask you, that this government come back with a definitive date on when we can expect construction to start.
Okay, thank you. And it's very obvious from the Deputy opposite his frustration and his passion for frustration with the delays to date and his passion to see this project over the line. And rest assured, Deputy, there's nobody in the department or Minister McHugh that want to slow this down any further. There were issues with traffic management that arose at 2A. The planning permission had been granted, as I said earlier in the process, and in Stage 2A there were some issues arose around traffic management post-planning, okay, which were after the planning process had been granted, and that necessitated a number of meetings with Meath County Council. So that did cause a delay by the time you get everybody around the table and whatever, and there was a number of those meetings involved. We prefer if these things didn't arise, but it's a fact of real life that they do arise on occasion when you're dealing with large-scale projects such as these. And as you said yourself, and you were the first to acknowledge that 2 other projects in the town, went through very, very well, but not every town or not every project will sail through as good. And we all have these issues in our constituencies, and we all have that frustration with the projects that are taking that extra time to deliver. But it's not the political system or the political will or our finances are holding it back. It's just going through the different processes. The school, St Mary's Special School, has crossed all the major hurdles. I mean, some of the bigger hurdles are getting on the plan. You know, I have schools in my own constituency that we can't get on in the next plan, or trying desperately to get on the next plan. It has a planning permission, which is a huge achievement, as you know from your time in public life, that it's a big obstacle to have. It has been through the design process, which is the 2A stage. That's where the issues arose. It now has gone to 2B, which is the final stage of design. That's just firming up some minor changes that have resulted as a result of the issues with traffic. That has to be approved by the department, and then you're into the pre-quals, which is basically narrowing down the list of contractors and going to tender. I can't give you a date here, and I'd be loath to give you a date even if I could, because that can build expectation and build disappointment. But this is on track. This is progressing well. I just outlined the timelines involved, 6 to 7 months for the tendering process, and before that you have the pre-quals and the detailed 2B. But both of those processes are weeks as opposed to months typically. But I don't want to give a date because we'll build disappointment around that again. Okay.